Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to create assessment templates. These are an awesome new feature in Buzz that allow you to create an instructional page and mix questions within that instructional page to get feedback on whether your students are understanding what they're reading and whether they can perform in a math class or science class the calculations you've just instructed them to perform. Okay, so here's an example of what one looks like. Here I've created an instructional page on the median. I've told my student, I put a nice title at the top, told my students how much time it's going to take them to complete the page. I go through, I give them instruction. Here and there I sprinkle some videos, so you'll see those along the way. Like here's a video, here's another video. And then on some of these pages, I sprinkle my questions that they actually calculate throughout the lesson. But on this particular lesson, I found it was easier to put them all at the end. So here's what it looks like. The questions that it gets pulled into the assessment. They're right there inside the instructional page, and the student just takes and chooses their answer and at the end submits them for grading. Okay. And then at the bottom of the page, I tell them that this is an excerpt from our OER book. And I tell them what to do next. It's always good practice for the very last line of your page to be an instruction on what the student should do next. So what should they do next here? Press submit. Okay, so let me give you an overview of the steps we're going to go through, and then I'll walk you through each of these steps. So step one is to lay the instructional page out in Buzz. That's kind of what you see here. It's an editor that you're already familiar with, so why not start there? You're going to be sure to include placeholders for audio, videos, and where you want your questions to appear. Step two is to create a new HTML page in Blue Griffin. This is an HTML editor. There are others out there. If there is one that you're more familiar with or find easier to use, by all means go for it. I chose this one because it was free and open source. Step three is to create a table, at least 3 by 3 in Blue Griffin page. This is so that we can have a little buffer zone on either side of our instructional content. Step four, you can always make the page more if you want color. As you can see, there's color here. I did that all using a table. Step four is to copy and paste the instructional page content from Buzz into the Blue Griffin page, and we usually do it in the center cell of the table. Step five is to add the HTML code for any audio and video files that you've included on your page. Step six is to add the HTML code for the questions, and there's a standard piece of HTML that you need to use. Step seven is to save the Blue Griffin HTML page into Google Drive in your course folder. Step eight is to create the assessment in Buzz. Step nine is to add questions to that assessment, and then to decide whether you want to randomize your question order based on the location you've put the questions in your assessment template. And finally, step 10 is to attach the HTML page to the assessment, because that's what drives everything. Okay, so let's actually get started. So we're going to come over to Buzz and create our instructional page. So that's what you can see here. I put a title at the top, told my students how long it's going to take them to complete the assignment. I've put in some kind of hook that gets them like, why should I care? Something interesting. I've gone through and done my instruction, as you can see, where I've had sections. I put interesting section titles to help the students. Both, it gives my page interest as they're first learning, but it's also a great way if they're coming back to find reference that they're like, oh, I forgot how to compute the variance. They can come back here and really quickly find it by looking at the section titles. So I've included those. I got my examples. Now you can see where I want questions to appear. I've actually put some question placeholder text, and I like to use double X's and then question underscore and whatever question number that is on the page, because it helps me to remember that when I'm over in HTML view. I usually bold these and make them red so they stand out more, but I didn't do it on this particular one. So I'll go along. You'll see also where I put placeholders for my video, because you don't want to insert your video here at this point. The copy and paste part doesn't work with the videos and audio. So we'll actually paste that code over in Blue Griffin. So here's where I'm going to insert a video. Here's where I'm going to insert another video. And finally, I'm going to insert a final question. Okay, so I've created my instructional page in Buzz. I've got my placeholders for my audios, my videos, and my questions. Now I'm ready to go into Blue Griffin and create a new HTML page. So I've installed Blue Griffin. Here it is. I'm ready to create a new page. So I'm going to go to File and New Wizard. And I'm going to choose HTML5. I'm going to put a title on my page because when I do that, it'll actually put it usually up at the top. So my title is The Variance. You can put in an author, description, keywords if you want to. Something I do select is the language in case somebody's using a screen reader. It knows that. There we go. And then for screen readers as well, I tell it text direction is left to right. Go next. You can create custom colors for your text and all of that if you want to. I just use the standard ones. And don't really fiddle with them. Next. You can include a background image if you want to, but if you do, you for sure want to use tables with solid backgrounds for the text for your students, because if anyone has kind of visual issues, having a background image behind text can make it very hard to read. But I just leave my page white. Next, here we want to actually lay out our page. You're going to want to choose one column that's 100%, and then on the sidebar, this would be if we had a website, we're building a website with multiple pages, we could have a navigation bar, kind of like the navigation bar is in Buzz itself, but we're not doing that. We're only creating a single page, so we want to get rid of the sidebar here, okay? And then I do include the Lorem Ipsum dummy content just so that I'll know the locations of where my text should go and things like that, and I can always remove that when I start building my page. So now I want to click Finish. And here is my page. You can see my page headers up here, my Lorem Ipsum's here. It gives you a footer that you can put information in if you want to. I don't usually populate that. And then you can see the page title I gave it. When I save it, that's what it's going to use as my name. All right, so I'm going to come over here to Buzz. We're in the next step. We've created our HTML page, so now we're going to create a table. Yep, I'm about to skip a step. Create a table at least 3 by 3 on the Blue Griffin page. So where I have this Lorem Ipsum text, I'm going to click in there and go above, and I'm going to insert a table. And I want my table to be 3 by 3. That way I have a row up top that'll act as a buffer. I have columns on the side and a row on the bottom. And we're going to work on changing the colors and all this. This is where my text is going to go when I copy it from Buzz over to here. And that is our next step. Copy and paste the instructional page content from Buzz into the Blue Griffin page. So we go over here, and I'm going to actually go into my editor. Oh, I forgot to mention, I create these pages and I call them HTML prep so that I'll know. And they're hidden, so my students don't see them, but they're there in case I ever need to come back and do something to them and recreate this page. I keep it there in Buzz. So I'm going to come over here and edit. And then I'm going to copy all of this information in here. Control A, Control C for copy. Come back to Blue Griffin. And right here, Control V to paste it all. Okay. And just I scroll through to make sure all of my images came over really nicely. That everything, you know, is laid out kind of nicely. Something I would go back later and fix over, I would do it in Buzz rather than here, is I really would like this to be centered. It's not, but I'm going to live with that for now. And just scrolling through to make sure everything's okay. And sure enough, it looks good. At this point, this would be where I would come in and fill maybe my sidebars with a color like you saw on the page over here, where I filled it with whatever my color scheme. In this particular class, my color scheme is gold, red, and black. So I came in and filled in with colors, but for time, I'm not going to take that time here, but know that you can do that if you wish. My next step here we've copied and pasted our instructional content. So our next step is to add the HTML code for the video and audio files. So this is where I go over to, I put my videos in YouTube. So I go over to YouTube and I'm going to click on share and then embed. And then I'm going to make sure that it unchecks show suggested videos because I don't want my students to see any suggested videos. And then I'm going to copy this HTML code here and come back over. And this is the first video I wanted to insert. So I'm going to highlight this right here. And then here's where it's going to get probably a little hairy, scary kind of for you, because you're going to head into ground may not be used to. I'm going to click on source. You see this source button down here? We're right now in the WYSIWYG or WYSIWYG editor, which is what you see is what you get. Things look just like we expect them to look. We click on source here. We're going to flip over to the HTML view. Now, you saw how I highlighted the insert video. When I do that, that's where I end up on my page, is at that same location. So there it is, right there, insert video. So I'm going to highlight that. Oh, it already is. And then I'm going to click Control V, and my code should paste right there where that was. Okay, and so now if I click back over to the WYSIWYG, I should see, and that'll say an error occurred on this page, and that's fine. That's only because we're not on a live browser right now. When you actually upload this into Buzz, this will work. But if you see this, then you've done well. It's done exactly what you want it to do. Okay, now I need to go get my other video. So let me go do that. This could also be done with audio content. You would just get the embed code. You've saved your audio file into Google Drive. You would get the embed code from there and use that. Same thing if you had had your video over in Google Drive, you could get the embed code from there. All right, copy, Control C, come back over here. This is also why I like to keep all of this, like with the underscore, it all connected as one whole word. It makes it a little easier to see and get rid of too when I'm pasting. So I'm clicking over to source. That's where I am. Now I'm going to do Control V. All right, and go back to my WYSIWYG, and there you go. My video's in. All right, so we've taken care of the video and audio files. Now it's time for the questions. Okay, so now I'm going to get the code for my questions, and this is the important code that we need for our questions, where they're going to appear. This is what tells Buzz to go into the assessment, grab this question, and put it in this location. So I'm going to copy this code right here. Now I'm going to go to my HTML editor, Blue Griffin, and I'm going to locate that very first question right here. So I'm going to highlight this, and then I'm going to click on source. There it is right there. I'm going to click on V, Control V to paste it. And now I need to change that XX to question 1, because that was question 1. Now I could go back over there and highlight the question 2 and come back here, but I actually see it right here. So I don't have to go all the way back over there. I'm going to highlight it right there, and I'm going to do Control V, and now I'm going to put in question 2. Okay, now I will go back over the WYSIWYG and go down. Now, oh, I do want to show you. You see it disappeared. Doesn't look like there's anything there, but there is. Don't panic. You're just not seeing it right now because there is nothing for it to pull and put there at the moment, but they're there. Now let's go down and find question 3. There it is. So I'm going to highlight it, click on source, and then Control V and change that XX to 3. All right, back to my WYSIWYG. And then cleaning up the page, I want to get rid of this lorem ipsum text. And then I want to get rid of my footer. I could put some information if I want to there, but I've already got it up here, so I'm not going to do that. and scroll up to the top. Because I already have a page header in here, I'm going to get rid of this page header here and leave that there. And like I said, you could decorate up your tables with colors if you want to, however you want to finish it. So you look over the page, make sure it looks like you want it to look. And then our next step after we've done this is to save it to the Google Drive course folder. So I'm going to go File, Save As. And then because I'm actually just doing this as illustration purposes, I'm going to put it into an easier folder to find stuff. So there we go. There's my variance file. So now I can minimize this, and I'm going to create the assessment in Buzz. So let's go back over to Buzz. We had our HTML prep page, and its only purpose is to prep the instructional page that we use to go over and paste into Blue Griffin. So I'm ready to close this. Now I need a second page that is an actual assessment. And you create this the same way you would any assessment. Back over here, if I went to my editor mode, and whichever folder I wanted to add it to, I would do add to that folder, and then I would choose assessment, just like I would do if I was going to create any kind of test. And inside that assessment, let me show you what I've done here. You have to have some kind of splash screen. That very first screen, this content right here, is the first thing the students see when they come to this page. So just like we would put our this is a test over this unit, and we would put our academic honesty reminders and things like that on that front page of the assessment. You're going to do the same thing here for this instructional one, but it's not going to be telling them that it's an assessment. What I do on mine is I'll put the title of whatever it is they're going to learn about. I'll give them that estimated time needed to complete so they'll know right before they go in how much time they need. Then I like to remind them of the essential questions that we're focusing on for that week. Put those there. I like to list the objective that is specific to this particular lesson, and I highlight my verbs so they know what levels they're going to be working at. And I also have my biblical focus area. For instance, this one we're kind of focusing on creation and how this content relates to creation. Then I've got that hook that I have at the beginning of my lesson that's like, why should I care to learn about this? I put that hook right here on the front page to get them interested. Okay, this is kind of where we're headed, where we're going when you click on this. And then I've got my instructional content. What should I do now? Well, right now you should press start, because if they don't realize that, they think this is just an instructional page, they're not necessarily going to know to press that start button. So you should tell them at the bottom, to begin this lesson, press start. And then they press start and it takes them into the lesson. Now, right now, this lesson only has my questions in it. That would be my next step. After I had created my screen, laid it out in Buzz, I would go over and I would populate the questions area. And so let's go to the editor here. So as you can see, I've laid out my page with all that information for them. Then I come over here to questions, and I know on this assessment I intended to have 3 questions. The first question, I was going to ask the students to calculate the mean. The second one, calculate the variance, and then finally to calculate another variance problem. So I populate the number of questions. Now, you could potentially, if you don't care, in this particular lesson, I wanted my questions to appear in a specific order. I want those, this is going to be question 1, this is going to be question 2, and this is going to be question 3. On some of my other assignments, I just want them to do some practice problems at the end to show me that they understand it. So I might create a bank of 10, 20 questions and just randomly pull 5 that they answer at the end. And what I like about that is if they don't get those right, then they could reload the assignment. I'm going to give it multiple attempts, go back in, and they get 5 whole new questions to practice with. Okay, and I give them feedback on these. Lots of feedback in the feedback area on these questions so that they know if they get something wrong, kind of what they should go back and do. But again, as I mentioned before, you can use multiple choice questions, fill in the blank, essay questions. So I've got a good combination here because I want to see their work and give them feedback. I've used multiple choice and essay questions here. On settings in this assessment, they're a little bit different than they would be for a test. One of the things that you need to decide on are your activity settings. Normally, you might randomize the question order. And sometimes even on these, you'll want to randomize the question order. On this particular assessment, I don't want to because those 3 questions are in the exact order I want them to appear on my assessment. So I have to remember to come over here and uncheck that randomized question order box when I want that to occur. And then on my multiple choice questions, I can still randomize the response order. Another thing you could do is require your students to actually answer the questions before you let them out of the assessment. If you wanted to do that, you check this box and then allow, save, and continue. Because this is a learning assignment and not so much an assessing assignment, I allow my students unlimited number of attempts, whereas on a test, I might only allow them 1 or 2 attempts. And then, of course, you go over here and you set up your grading and all of the other settings you'd like to set up. And on these, you would not put a password on them. Okay, and you could also decide whether you want to allow them to see correct answers after they've done the questions or you want them to try again. Okay, so once you've got all of those, we've got our splash screen set up, we've got our assessment settings set up, we've got our questions added. Now we're ready to save, and I always save and then come back and do the next step. Okay. The next step after we create the assessment and we add questions is to attach the HTML page. But I want to save that just in case anything goes wrong. This is set. Now I'm going to come back into the same assessment, and this is where the magic happens. This is where we're going to actually attach that HTML page that makes things happen. So you go back over to settings, and we come down to advanced assessment options. This is where you set your time limit and the question scoring, but the really cool part, this is also where you actually password the assessment if it was a real test. But here's the really neat part. You see where it says exam template here? I'm going to click upload, and then I'm going to choose file, and I'm going to go to that page that I created and choose it, click open. And then one of the things that I like to create is an actual destination folder. You only have to do this once, and then from there you select it from your list. This is how I can keep things organized in the resources area in Buzz. So I'm going to create a destination folder called assessment templates. And then I'm going to create and do upload. And so it's going to save it to that assessments templates folder. And then also scored attempt, I would do highest. Okay, now I'm ready to save again and watch the magic happen. Press start. Here's my splash screen with my hook. Tells my students to press start. And now here's my content. There's my first question. Calculate the mean. Here's my next one. Calculate the variance. Scroll down. Remember how those videos look like they didn't work over there? Guess what? They do here. You could press play and it would work. Here's my other video, and there's my final question. So that's how you create an assessment template in Buzz. Explore this. It's super cool. I'm so excited that they've added this feature, and I hope you get as excited as well. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me on Skype and let me know. Until next time.